My name is William Christensen, and I'm the publisher of Avatar Press. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown us over the years, and I'm hoping you've all had a chance to check out and enjoy the new Max Brooks series, Extinction Parade. That's what we're here to talk to you a little bit about today. So without any further ado, it is my incredible honor and pleasure to introduce a great friend of mine and a fantastic entertainer and brilliant writer. Let's hear it for Mr. Max Brooks.
Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for coming. For starters, before we do anything else, who's read my book, World War Z? All right. Who's seen a movie by the same title? All right. Before we do anything else, let's just deal with the Brad Pitt elephant in the room. For those of you who haven't and don't know who I am and think I'm the guy from 2.5 Men, many years ago, before some of you were born, in 2006, I came out with a book called World War Z, and in my country we called it Z. Yay! At that point, a gentleman named Bradley Pitt, he optioned the movie rights to produce it. He was not going to star in it, he just wanted to produce it, and I said, yes, wonderful, okay. Because I was given a choice. I could say to him, no, I want ultimate creative control or nothing, and then I could have just taken my book and walked away, or I could have taken a risk. And as a very wise man once said, and his name was James T. Kirk, risk is our business. And that's pretty much how I feel as a writer. Whenever you're a creative person, whenever you put your work out there, risk is your business. And so I took the risk. I let Mr. Pitt adapt my book. And 6 years later, a movie came out with the same title. Since that time, I've been asked how I feel. Well, the truth is I felt everything. I went through every kind of emotion. Initially, I thought, all right, it's theirs, let them run with it. I wrote the book, big difference. Then the trailer came out. Now, I get a lot of questions from aspiring writers, sort of what my tips are. You know, what's your tips for being a writer? What's your advice? Well, the best advice I can give anybody here who wants to be a writer or artist in general is marry the right person. Because the life of an artist will destroy you if you don't have someone who has your back. If you don't have someone who loves you and cares about you and knows what's best for you, even if you don't. So after I saw the trailer, my wife said to me, call Frank Darabont. Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, have you heard of a TV show called Walking Dead? Yay! Have you heard of a comic book called Walking Dead? Okay, good. Now, a long time ago, there was this comic book called Walking Dead. And it was, yes, wonderful, hooray. However, it was still a comic book, which meant for people like us, it was still niche, it wasn't mainstream. You know, we as comic book readers, we think we're the majority. We're like the American Tea Party. We're not. We're a fringe. So this gentleman, Frank Darabont, who gave us films like, oh, I don't know, Shawshank Redemption, said, I'm going to put this on television. Nobody wanted it. Nobody was into it. He said, I will prove to you that I can do it. And he got his writing staff and his cast from all his movies and his crew, and he put it together, and he made an amazing television show. He made a cultural phenomenon. And to reward him, AMC fired him. Wow. Personally, I would have given him a statue on the mall in Washington, D.C. for what he did. Right next to Dr. Martin Luther King. There would have been Dr. King like this, and there would have been Frank. So my wife said, call Frank, because we knew him, we were friends. She said, Frank knows what you're going through. So I wrote to him, I said, Frank, this, and the trailer, and run his zombie, just, wow, Frank. So he wrote me back, and he said, look, you have your book. Nobody can take that away from you. You have your side of the story. So no matter what happens with the movie, nobody can accuse you of doing it. He said, trust me, it's a hell of a lot better than being a screenwriter where you write the script and then they change it and then everybody thinks that's your movie. He said, your book is pure. But then he did me one better. He wrote to a friend of his who then wrote back to me through Frank and said, please tell your friend Max, number one, I read his book and I liked it. And number two, it doesn't matter what happens with the movie. It will bring attention to his book and more people will be reading his book than have ever read it before. All the best, Stephen King. So that sort of buoyed me. I was like, okay, all right, I'm ready to go see this thing. So, you know, I went to the premiere, not the one in London. I went to the one in New York, and you know, the big red carpet, and it's everything you would expect from Hollywood, and there's flash bulbs, and then there's the press saying, how do you feel about all this? And then there's Fox News saying, what's the color blue look like? And I went in there, I sat down. Now, I expected to be tearing my hair out for 2 hours. I expected to go through what Stephen King went through when he watched The Shining. You know, there's his characters not saying what they're supposed to say and not doing what they're supposed to do. And oh my God, there's my story and it's not turning out the way I wrote it. And that's what I thought was going to happen. So the credits rolled, the movie started, and I realized, wow, they didn't ruin my book. They ignored it. Which then gave me the blessed ability to completely emotionally divorce myself and just sit there and eat my popcorn and watch this wonderful version of 28 Days Later on crack. So I watched it, it was fine. I didn't mind it. In fact, I respect the fact that it is to this day the most brilliant piece of middle-aged female pornography I have ever seen. And what I mean by that is, forget 50 Shades of getting whipped and chained. If you really want to get a middle-aged married woman hot, her ultimate fantasy is to come downstairs and there's Brad Pitt making pancakes. Hi, honey. Going to your fancy job? I had one of those and I gave it up for you. Wow, that was marketing. The best thing they did, which I couldn't believe, I turned to my wife at one point, I said, did you write this? Because there's a scene where, you know, in the movie, he has to go around the whole world and yet still check in with his wife every day. Married men, you know what I'm talking about. Wow. I mean, he literally is on a plane, he's taking off, and the zombies are below him, and the nuke goes off. Hi, honey, how was your day? That is some good marketing. So I say, good for him. Let him do what he wants to do. Let him do the sequel. I have my book, and everybody happy. So that's how I feel about World War Z, the book, and the movie. So now, moving on. We're here to talk about what's called the Extinction Parade. On the surface, the Extinction Parade is zombies versus vampires. That's not what it's about, though. That's what the story is, that's not what it's about. What it is about is the pitfalls of privilege. What I mean by that is, my philosophy is that our greatest strengths as individuals and also as a species come from compensating for our greatest weaknesses. What I mean is, as I've gotten older, I've realized that the most successful people I've met, I'm 41, I'm going to be 42, and the most successful people I've met in my age group didn't have it easy when they started out. When they were kids, they had to overcome something. Physical disability, financial hardship, something emotional, whatever. They did not have an easy time. They had to learn how to adapt and fight and scratch. And that made them much smarter and stronger and more resilient to change and to adversity. Whereas the people I grew up with who had everything handed to them, once they got to be my age and adversity came knocking, they had no survival skills. And I believe that as a species. I said, wait a minute. We're not supposed to be top of the food chain. We're not. We're here. You know, we spent 9/10 of our evolution going, what the hell was that? But we learned, and we adapted, and we grew stronger and smarter, and we clawed our way up to dominance of the planet. So I started to think, what about another species that had everything handed to them? What if they were spoiled by all these special gifts, speed, strength, agility, ability to heal, immortality? Everybody I know growing up loved vampires. They thought they were sleek and sexy. When I saw them, I would think, get a job. Because to me, they look completely vulnerable. They've never had to confront any problems. And they've never had to overcome them. So I wanted to write a series about what would happen when these vampires who have been resting comfortably and arrogantly at the top of the food chain was suddenly confronted with an existential crisis. Suddenly, oh my God, our one food source is being eaten out from under us. What will we do? What can we do? We have no history of organizing. We have no history of adapting. We have no history of prioritizing. We've never felt fear. We've never had to overcome fear. We've never had to be disciplined. We've never had to do any of the things the weaker species, the humans, have done. Can we do it? And will there be time? That is the premise of the Extinction Parade. We're now at issue number 5, where we've finally taken it up to war. Because in issue number 1, vampires are loving it. Because in my story, vampires have been feeling very hemmed in by human civilization, the rise of civilization. What I mean by that is not just technology. It's the rise of the middle class. The notion that individual citizens can have worth. They're not fans of that. Oh my God, you mean we can kill somebody and the cops will show up? So they've been feeling more and more suffocated. So when the zombies start to eat through civilization, they're loving it. Because they don't know how bad this is. They think it's like the fall of Rome. They think it's a party. And through issue 2, it gets exciting. And then issue 3, we talk about their caretakers, their Renfields. What happens when their Renfields bail on them? Finally, in issue 4, they're confronted with the inconvenient truth. We're not just talking about the end of human civilization, we're talking about the end of humanity. What are we going to do? And in issue 5, they finally realize we have to take a hand in our own destiny. That's the Extinction Parade, and that's where we're up to so far. And I am extremely tired of hearing my own voice, so I would love to open up the floor to questions, see what you guys have to say. So who's going to be the first to overcome their social anxiety disorder? Yes. What do I like about zombies? Nothing. No, because I don't like zombies. You would never catch me at a zombie walk. To me, that's like a syphilis walk. They're disgusting and scary and stupid, and they multiply and they come at you and you can't negotiate with them. You can't surrender to them, which is really hard on the French. Oh, I didn't make that up. What do you think, I photoshopped a picture of Hitler in front of the Eiffel Tower? There is no gray area. You have to kill them or they kill you. Yeah, what I like about zombies, nothing. Not too keen on vampires either. Moving on. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Here, run up. You'll be like a talk show host. There you go.
How you doing, sir?
I'm well.
Did you get any of the idea for this from the Deadliest Warrior episode that you did, Zombies versus
Oh,
Vampires?
okay. What's your name?
Mike Donaldson.
Mike Donaldson. Who's heard of Deadliest Warrior? All right, those of you who haven't, don't worry about it. I'll break it down for you. Okay. When we were young, mostly young men, but also some young women, used to have conversations like, if a ninja fought a Spartan, who do you think would win? Somebody thought about putting that actually on television. And they got a show called Deadliest Warrior. And they really did that. They had a guy dressed as a ninja, Spartan. They brought in experts on ninja-isms and Spartanhood. And they had computer simulations and they tested weapons and they really would see like who would win. And they realized after 2 seasons that a certain section of their viewership was still getting laid. So they said, how do we ratchet this up? How do we really make this just so nerdy that nobody will ever have sex again? And they said, oh, vampires versus zombies. So they brought me and Matt Moak from the Zombie Research Society in as Team Zombie, and they brought in Steve Niles from 30 Days of Night and a dude who looks like Christian Slater as Team Vampire. And we did it, and we actually, we had a zombie jaw biting, how fast it would take, and zombie claws, and we did the whole thing, and zombies lost. Now, I was okay with that, because I watched Deadliest Warrior, and I'm always disappointed. My team always loses. And I should start out by saying, as you probably have already guessed, I'm kind of a weird dude. And one of the things that's so weird about me is I don't watch sports. I don't get it. Yeah, well, I just don't get it, because people are like, yeah, we won. You didn't win anything. But I watch Deadliest Warrior, and I make that artificial contact with the team, and I'm like, yes, go! And then when my team loses, I get so mad. And I'm like, what? The Viet Cong lost to the Waffen SS? We couldn't beat the Viet Cong and those sausage suckers did? Ref, are you blind? So I expected to lose. Now your question is, did I get ideas from it? Actually, I did, because initially I had written a short story, The Extinction Parade, which got just about to be published. I sent it to my agent right before I started taping Deadliest Warrior. And I was on the show backstage, arguing with Steve, and Matt and I were talking, and there were so many thoughts that were coming to my head that I hadn't put in the short story. And I realized I want to extend this. So when William, who I lovingly refer to as the capitalist oppressor, when he came to me and said, I'd like to adapt this, I said, sure, let's do it, because then I can really have a chance to flesh out all these ideas that keep coming to me. So that's why Deadliest Warrior was so important. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Which zombie movie inspired you most with your work?
Oh,
also with vampires.
All right. Which zombie movie inspired me most? The most important one, I would say, is the original Dawn of the Dead. The original Dawn of the Dead. Because what I love about George Romero, praise be unto him, is his social commentary. He doesn't want to just do heads being blown off and who's having sex with who. I mean, his thing is really about us. Us as a society, where are we now? And the great thing about Dawn of the Dead was he just slammed his generation. Now, I don't know how it was in this country, but we had a generation after World War II called the baby boomers. And when they were young, they were like, hey, man, don't have stuff, man. Just live and just be free and just love. And I don't want plastic and things, man, because that's like my parents. And they had this thing, don't trust anyone over 30. Yeah. And then they turned 30. And then all they wanted was stuff. And that's what Romero did. He had this amazing story of just consumerism, mindless consumerism, like zombies. So yes, that was my inspiration. As far as vampires, it was always been sort of a mix of sort of different movies. I can tell you which one it wasn't. I think we all know. Yeah, and I'm not gonna name it, because that's not cool. I don't want to slam someone. So anyway, Twilight. All I can say is I'm so glad I don't have a daughter, because that wow. I mean, those books set not only the feminist movement back, I think they set the suffragette movement back. I mean, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, wow, okay, so be passive, find a bad boy who will protect you. When he moves away, do self-destructive things to bring the bad boy back, and then tease another boy so two boys will fight over you. What great lessons for young women. Okay, I mean, if I wasn't gonna get sued, I would write a comic book called Ellen Ripley Kills Bella. Anyway, sorry to go off on that tangent. Moving right along. Anyone else? Yes, miss.
Hi. Away from zombies and away from vampires, like, just what scares you? What at like the most basic level of like horror and horror genre? What absolutely terrifies you?
Oh, okay. We're talking horror genre, not real life, because real life is 20 years from now visiting my son in rehab, you know, blaming me for everything I did wrong. That's really scary.
Which is fair.
Yeah, which is fair. No, horror-wise, the reason zombies scare me is because they don't obey the rules of other monsters. You know, every other monster you have to go find. You know, every other monster starts with a big mistake. Every other monster starts with like young, beautiful Caucasian Americans and one token black guy, and they have to go off somewhere. And there's always some big doofy, big dude who's like, yeah, man, you're about like the summer camp where like this dude flipped out and like killed everybody with a spork. Like, we should totally go check it out. And then they go, and my attitude is, screw them. Because I wouldn't do that. That's my self-defense mechanism. I watch these movies and I'm like, that's your ass. You know, I mean, that's how I live my life, and that's in real life too. I know this is on PC to say, but like, when the crocodile hunter died, I was like, he's a crocodile hunter. That was his job. It's not like he was sitting at home and the doorbell rang and he's like, oh, I wonder who that is. How don't know, get it? Oh, hello, Mr. Stingray. Oh! That was his job. So when someone goes looking for trouble, I don't have that much sympathy. But when trouble comes looking for you, that's terrifying. The notion that we can just be minding our own business and not doing anything wrong, and that I can just be sitting at home one night just watching Game of Thrones and marveling at the level of incest, and then suddenly they're gonna come through the doors and the windows and kill me? Terrifying. So that's what scares me more than anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, young man.
What inspired you to start writing?
Oh, to start writing? Or to start writing? Okay, well, I just did. I mean, when I was about 12 years old, and I just started writing a short story, and it was god-awful, and, but that's okay, you know, you just do it. So I've been writing since I was about 12. What specifically inspired me to write Zombie Survival Guide was something before you were born called Y2K. And ask your parents about it, because there was a time called the 1990s. And I don't know how it was in this country, but in my country, in the US, it was an awesome time. All right, like the economy was booming and oil was cheap, and our president did dirty things with an intern, and it was just like, it was a great time to be an American. But there was this darkness rising, this fear that on New Year's Eve 2000, all the banks and the computers were gonna reset and launch missiles, and the missiles would land on the farms, and I mean, real panic. And people started like stocking up, and I don't mean like the doomsday preppers, you know, like the losers who want this to happen, so then they can be like a superhero and not the dude who works at Starbucks. I mean like grown-ups with jobs and lives were stocking up, and they were reading all these survival guides. And I'm into that because I'm from LA and we always live on the edge of the apocalypse, so I started reading them and I was like, well, what about one for me? I'm scared of zombies. Where's my zombie survival guide? So I went looking for one, and there wasn't anyone around. And I figured, well, I'll write it for myself, not to be published. I didn't think it was going to be published. I just wrote it to stick it in a drawer. And because I didn't think it was going to be published, I didn't write for an audience. You know, I didn't write for them thinking, well, what are they going to like? I just thought, what would I like? And for me, it's all about the little details. It wasn't about being cool and macho and blowing heads off. For me, it was like, wow, most people in a zombie outbreak are probably going to die from dehydration. And they're probably going to die from like bad nutrition. And that's not cool. Like you wouldn't see that in a TV show. Like nobody in a zombie movie or TV show is going to drink from a puddle of stagnant water and get amoebas and crap themselves to death. Like you're not going to see that. You're going to be like, come on, we got to get to the helicopter. Oh my God. That's not going to happen. But that's literally what would happen in real life. You know, so I hope that answers your question. Anyone else? Yes, Clockwork Orange.
Thank you. I have a problem. Lived in Houston, Texas for the last 15, 20 years. When I moved here, I had to sell all the guns, all the ammo. I've read the Zombie Survival Guide, and I'm having trouble knowing now what to do. What advice have you got? What do we do now here in the UK?
All right. Now, okay, for Texans who have to live in the UK, for Texans who have to leave Texas, here's your survival guide. Here's what you got to do. There's a couple things you're going to have to bone up on. Theory of evolution. That's a big one. You have to realize that, well, obviously, as you now know, there's other countries. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's crazy. And the thing is, you don't really need the guns, because the truth is, I think guns actually make people overconfident. You know, because when you know the expression, every man a tiger, like, you know, the spirit of the tiger? No, the tiger is a specialized predator who's gonna die. No, you have to be the rat or the cockroach. You have to be the survivor. So you don't want to get in a confrontation with zombies or anything. If you have a gun, you're going to be like, yeah, here I go. And you're going to run out of ammo. Like, if I was going to write a Texas zombie movie, I would name it Click. Because that's going to happen to a lot of us. But it's good because, look, back home in the States, I mean, I make fun of Texas, but I'm from LA, where on Z-Day 1, everybody's going to shoot everybody. I mean, literally, for the first 5 days in a zombie plague, I tell everybody in America, just crawl. Because, see, they don't know this. And they don't understand the concept of the North American redneck in his natural habitat. See, you guys don't get that. You don't know that on Z-Day 1, the trailer parks of my country are going to burst forth in a mushroom cloud of crystal meth. So, hell yeah! So you see, now living in England, you know, you're lucky because people will actually queue up for the apocalypse. I mean, I've watched your riots. You know, people get, oh, I'm sorry, you're in the looting queue. Yes, the raping queue is over there. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, sorry. So yeah, it'll be difficult. So just, you know, you have to be a little bit quiet. And well, the thing is also, if you still want to be sort of aggressive and powerful and loud, learn an Irish accent. Because then you just be like, come on, we gotta go! And then they'll be like, it's one of them. Anyone else? Yes.
With World War Z,
Zed.
Z, I prefer Z. But with the actual book, obviously, there's lots of multiple short stories.
Yes.
Which one would you have liked to have continued? Me personally, I would like to have continued reading the Japanese one with the Tokyo is coming down the building.
Oh, yes.
Which one would you have liked to have continued if you could have?
All right, for those of you who haven't read World War Z, I'll tell you, it's not a traditional zombie story, which is, we should back up for a little bit. It's not the kind of zombie story that you see, which is like a small group of people like fighting through their zombie world, which is why I wrote it, because I thought that had been done and done well. So I wanted to write narratives from all around the world. I wanted survivor stories from everywhere, because to me, a zombie story is a big story. So why are we keep telling little zombie stories? I wanted to know more, so I set out to answer my own questions. So I had read a book when I was a kid called The Good War by Studs Terkel. It's an oral history of the Second World War, points of view from all over the world. So I thought, okay, what a great way to tell a zombie story. And it was sort of different characters from everywhere. As far as your question, which one I would continue, I don't know. That's a really good question. It's like choosing your children. I like them all. So we'll see. I don't know. Anyone else? Yes, Fez. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Doctor Who. Or as I like to call him, yes, guy who came after Tom Baker.
You've got a lot of guys to call that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so, big question.
American or Canadian?
American,
From where?
California,
Where?
San Francisco.
Oh, okay, a real city. Go on.
Okay, so for a long time, there's always been a certain trending monster. Like I've heard in the 80s it was ghosts, 90s it was angels, 2000s it was vampires.
Right.
But zombies seem to go beyond that. They seem to have a lot more staying power. Or is it that zombies have more prevalence or more appeal as monsters and that they don't need to trend? Or is it that you think they have more of a enduring trending power?
Oh, no. I think the reason zombies have continued to be popular for the last decade is because we've been living in a decade of terror. We've been living in a very anxiety-ridden decade, as opposed to like, young man, remember we talked about the 90s, okay, and how great the 90s were? There were no zombies in the 90s. The 90s, like I said, remember economy and .com and Bill Clinton and like the Ukraine had just become independent. They were like, oh, this smooth sailing from here on out. I mean, it was a time of optimism. And there were no zombie stories anywhere. Believe me, I looked. So I think the reason zombie stories are so popular is because we're living in such uncertain times. They're so scary. You know, every time you turn on the TV, you just see people going, ah, and that's Manchester. So I think people instinctively, psychologically want to explore the apocalypse. But I think if it's too real, we instinctively want to tune it off. Like, have you guys heard of, there's a book by Cormac McCarthy, The Road, and a movie? Yeah, have you read it? I haven't, because I'm a parent. That's real, that could really happen. I'm not reading that. But if you make the catalyst, if you make the cause of the apocalypse fake, you can do everything else real. Because that one step would never happen. So you can watch people looting and killing and doing horrible things to each other in holes that should never be penetrated. But it's okay because you go, oh, well that's because of zombies. I'm gonna go back to sleep. And that's cool. And I think that's why zombies are so popular. They're a safe way of exploring the real apocalypse. Anyone else? Yes, miss.
Are you a fan of the horror genre in general? Do you have a favorite movie that you'd always go back and watch? Or
You know, the thing is, I'm not much of a horror fan because, like I said, most horror films begin with young people making dumb choices. And so automatically I don't have much sympathy for them. I mean, there's a couple movies that I will still endure to this day, like Jaws. You know, like I think the 70s was the best time for horror. The absolute best, because they didn't know what they were doing. So they just made movies. And Spielberg, do you guys know this? When Spielberg was shooting Jaws, the shark didn't work. So what he did was he was like, well, I guess we'll just have to shoot it from the point of view of the shark. And then all the critics were like, that is genius. What a genius idea. But it makes for a great movie, you know? And it has depth and it has humor, like a Richard Dreyfuss, they're all gonna die. I love movies like Alien, the first one. I mean, oh my God. That was so terrifying. So there's a lot of movies that I mean, I am a fan of that sort of horror genre. I think now it's sort of become I'm not a fan of torture porn. I think that's just weird. And also I think a lot of people are horror fans because instinctively they feel safe. And they want to be scared. They feel like this is a safe world, a boring world, and they're like, scare me, woo! I don't need that, all right? I turn on the news. I know how scary the world is. I want something calm. You know, I'm just like, oh God, let me turn on New Girl with Zooey Deschanel. It's a safe world. So I hope that answers your question.
thank you.
Oh, by the way, she actually dresses like a zombie. She's a professional zombie. It's true. She's a professional zombie. We've met, and people actually pay to shoot her in the head with an airsoft gun. So, yay for cottage industries. So, yeah. So, dude from Texas, whenever you get homesick. Anyone else? Yes, way over there by the wall. There's a gentleman by the wall, and he's gonna run. Come on.
Hi, simple question. Has there ever been talk of a World War Z TV series? Because the way that the book's structured, it's very episodic. So
I don't know. I mean, look, the truth is I'm not involved in any of that stuff. No, I'm really not. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, there's talk, actually, ironically, of an Extinction Parade TV series. I'm already in negotiations with a production company for the TV rights to Extinction Parade. Now, does that mean that we will see it on a TV next year? Probably not. These things tend to take a very, very long time. But what's nice is, in respect to Extinction Parade, I have much more creative control. And what I was saying to this company when we were negotiating was, look, I don't mind compromising things like characters or background or things like that, but I will not compromise the message. And that's very important for me. The whole reason I wrote Extinction Parade was to talk about the pitfalls of privilege and how being handed everything makes you weak. And if we don't talk about that, if that's not the central message of the show, I don't want to do it. I don't care. We either have to go pure or we have to go home. So that's how I feel about television. Anyone else? Let's go from over on this side. There's a young gentleman. Run! There's a young gentleman over here in the green. Yes, lime green.
If the zombie apocalypse actually came, what would be your first move and who would you take with you?
Oh, that's an excellent question. What's your name, young man?
William.
William, how old are you? You're 12. Okay, now William, see, because you're 12 and your whole life is in front of you, you have what's called choices. Which means you can choose who you're going to take with you. See, I'm 42. I'm married with a kid. I have no choices. I can't choose my group. So I see, like, you're a volunteer, I'm a draftee. So when the zombie apocalypse does come, I got my group pre-prepared. There's me, my wife, and my kid, and my miniature dachshund, and my Bichon poodle mix, and my dad, and Carl Reiner. And that's pretty much my gang. And if there's any room, maybe Mr. T, I don't know. But that's it. Anyone else? Hey, yes, in the blonde. Yes, with the big, what are you? What anime character are you? You're Eloise.
Eloise.
Oh, of course you're Eloise. Anyway.
What would be your weapon in a zombie apocalypse?
Other than my wit? My weapon has to be homegrown. It has to be sort of whatever is a local tool, because you can't just have a weapon. The weapon has to have multiple uses, because you're not going to be killing every day. For example, like if I lived in Canada, I would need like ice skates or an axe, you know, because I'd have to chop down a lot of trees to get to where I'm going. Where I live in LA, we actually have to carry crowbars in our earthquake kits, because this is a true story. In an earthquake, the house can shift on its foundation and jam the door in the door frame. And so you need to have a crowbar just in case. So that's what I would have, to pry the door open or brain a zombie. So as far as other weapons that you might consider, talk to the Texan. Moving on. Yes, sir, with the wine-colored 70s shirt, yes.
You're quite well known for writing zombies, and you're going into vampires. Are you hoping to sort of in the near future sort of move on from that, move on from the horror genre?
Oh, I'm not hoping. It's happened. Okay, 15 years ago, back during the 90s, you know, I wrote a screenplay based on a very true story from the First World War called the Harlem Hellfighters. The true story about a group of black American soldiers who were set up to fail by their own government. This was a time in American history when large amount of black people were moving into the cities, and the white status quo was not happy about it. So, you know, you guys got into World War I because, I have no idea, and I don't think you do either. But we came in because we wanted to make the world safe for democracy. Well, we realized, how are you going to make the world safe for democracy if you're sending troops that are oppressed and don't have democracy at home? So they tried to make sure these guys didn't get into combat. They sabotaged them every chance they got. Poor uniforms, poor training. They had to write to their own government for their own guns. They were sent to South Carolina hoping there'd be a race war. There was none. They were sent overseas to dig ditches in France. Finally, when they wanted to get into combat, we gave them to the French. which is the worst insult because the American General Pershing was like, no American troops are going to be fed piecemeal into the British and French armies. They're going to fight under an American flag as Americans, except for the black guys. So they gave them to the French. The French, who had had good luck with their African colonial troops, put them in combat. They became one of the most decorated units in the entire US Army. And they marched home as heroes, all wearing the French Croix de Guerre. So I wrote it as a script. Nobody wanted it. And I was going to give up on it. And then a gentleman named LeVar Burton, I think you may know LeVar Burton, he told me, this is a good script and it's an important story and it comes closest to the truth than any other. So stick with it. And I did. And then when I got into comics, William and I sat down and we said, let's do the Harlem Hellfighters. It's coming out April 1st. Last week, I got a phone call. Will Smith wants the movie rights. "15 years of Hollywood saying no, I suddenly get a call from the biggest African-American movie star of all time." Okay, that's how it works. So yes, so I have actually moved on. But I will also still be writing Extinction Parade. We're only on issue 5. I've got like maybe 10 more issues to write, and I'm in it. I'm deep in Extinction Parade because now we're talking about the war. You know, it's one thing to just kill a few zombies, but wars are different from fighting. Can you organize? Do you need to have an army? Will you have weapons? Also, and this is really important, vampires in issue number 6 have to push their physical limitations before. You guys all know what it's like. You don't know what your physical limitations are until you actually have to push it. You don't know how strong you are until you go to the gym and try to lift something, or until you run for the first time and then throw up. You don't know. Neither do vampires. They're just one-shot, pounce, kill weapons. So finally they're confronted. They realize, oh my God, we are fallible. To say nothing of the fact that our food source is drying up. And also I realized their food source is becoming polluted. It's one thing to feed on healthy humans. It's another to feed on malnourished humans. It's like a herbivore eating dry grass. You can eat meat and still die of malnourishment. So these are the kind of details I like to literally sink my teeth into. How are we doing on time? We got another 10 minutes. All right, who's next? Yes, with the glasses.
Do you think that you'd survive a zombie apocalypse?
Do I? Once again, when you have a kid, you don't have a choice. I mean, I have to. I got a kid. If I was single, I'd be like, oh, dude, whatever, I don't know. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'd probably be like, Kurt Cobain is dead, what's the point? Anyone else? Yes, young lady. Yes, in the hair, yes. Supergirl, yes.
You speak about the privileges of pitfall.
Pitfalls are yeah.
What are your thoughts about the new term affluenza?
Affluent, oh, I think it's a great term. I mean, look, this is something that's really important. I don't know how it is in your country, but I'll tell you, in my country, I started to write Extinction Parade because I've become a parent. And I've seen how my kids in my country are being raised, and it's really, really dangerous. Because when I was a kid, you got teased, you didn't have good grades, whatever. Things happened. Pardon my language, but shit happened. And that's okay. It made you stronger. But now, in my country, and I'm not kidding, when two children's soccer teams play each other, they both get trophies. Because nobody wants their feelings hurt. And you're not allowed to discipline your kid anymore. You're not allowed to use words that might hurt their feelings. It's all about preserving their self-esteem. Kids are never allowed to fail in my country anymore. In fact, the whole new millennial generation has this term, epic fail. What they don't realize is, and I've said this, I spoke at the university I graduated from, epic fail is good. If you don't have epic fails, you'll never have epic lessons. And you'll never epically grow. And if you spend your whole life dodging failure, sooner or later failure is going to come knocking. Nobody ever has a perfect life. Sooner or later you're going to lose money or get a divorce or get cancer. Something is going to happen. And if you don't have any kind of experience with dealing with adversity in your 20s, you will not survive it in your 50s. And that's really important for me. You know, I watch TV shows like the Kardashians in my country, where the message is, the more successful you are, the less work you have to do. That's incredible, and that's terrifying. Because the reason we all became a superpower is not just because your empire imploded. It's because we had something called the Greatest Generation, and their childhood was the Great Depression. You know, nowadays, kids are like, hey, look how many Facebook friends I got, and I'm tweeting, yeah. You know what, the Greatest Generation, when they were kids, they were like, food! Wow, I don't have to go to bed hungry. And then they became teenagers. And whereas teenagers today, it's all about who's popular, who's not. Oh man, my teacher hurt my feelings, I'm gonna tell my parents. I actually have friends who are professors. The kids call their parents when they don't get good grades. And the parents call the professors. I have friends who, when they hire 20-somethings, their parents show up for job interviews. I'm not kidding. 2 generations ago, you know what American young people did? Duck and fight and crush Hitler and avenge Pearl Harbor and work in factories. That's what we used to do, and that's all gone. And that's why it's so important for me to write about Extinction Parade, about you have to grow through struggle, because if you don't, you're just not going to be ready. Anyone else? Yes, white hair.
How are you going to stop Will Smith from spoiling your script?
Oh! You know what? I've been waiting for that question. What's your name? Jay, that's an excellent question. And you know what the answer is? I don't have to worry about Will Smith spoiling my script. You know why? It's not mine. It's theirs. See, when I wrote World War Z, it all came from me. I made it up. But the Harlem Hellfighters is based on a true story. So I'm not worried about what Will Smith or Sony Pictures can do to me. The task is staying true and respectful to the story of these real American heroes. And so there are limits to what we can do. You know, you can't just throw the story away. You can't just say, oh, I'm gonna make it 5 white guys and the Chinese movie market's big, so we'll put a Chinese dude in there. You can't do that. The facts are the facts, and I'm not saying you can't play with them, because I have fictionalized characters in my story. It's my version, my telling, but it is a true story, and so the limitations are much more rigid than, say, a book about, survivors from all around the world, and talking about economics and politics and sociology. Zip, Brad Pitt making pancakes. I hope that answers your question, which was a really, really good question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You talk about privilege in terms of there's been writers like Max Landis, yourself, Joe Hill. Did you find when you were younger that being who you are, it was easier, or was it actually a much more of a struggle?
No, see, this is the irony of my life. Thank you for asking that. The big irony of my life is, for those of you who don't know, my parents, my father is Mel Brooks and my mother was Anne Bancroft. So on paper, I had it pretty good. I never went to bed hungry. And, you know, if I wanted like a G.I. Joe action figure, I got it. Here's the thing though, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt had polio, I had dyslexia. And let me tell you, all the money in the world couldn't help me read better. All the money in the world couldn't buy me doing less homework. I was tutored every night from 1st grade to 11th grade for 2 to possibly 3, even 4 hours just to get me a passing grade. While all the other kids around me sometimes didn't even read the books. Just came in, took their test, bam, blew right through it. And every day of my young life, I kept thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Why do I work so hard and get so little? And so, but the dyslexia prepared me for what I do now. You know, people ask me about like researching for World War Z. They're like, well, how'd you do all the research? And yeah, my works tend to be very heavily researched, because I'm comfortable with sitting down and opening a damn book and taking notes, because that's all I had to do my whole childhood, was sit for hours and hours and try to learn something. And I'm still dyslexic, it's not like it went away. But it means I have to pay extra special attention to everything I'm doing, and details mean everything to me now. It made me who I am. And I think that's very important. I mean, look, I remember like when I saw Star Trek V, and which maybe people didn't like it, but there was a great scene in it where Captain Kirk, Cybok's gonna take away his pain. Remember what he says? He said, pain and guilt can't be taken away with the wave of a magic wand. Things we carry inside us, things that make us who we are. We lose them, we lose ourselves. I don't want my pain taken away, I need my pain. That's who I am. And had I been not dyslexic, if I could just come in and blow through tests and life was just easy, I don't know where I'd be. You know? I'd probably be in rehab. Because believe me, I know people who everything was easy for them, and then they got older, and life got harder, and it didn't matter how much money you had. Because money ain't gonna stop you from getting cancer. It's not gonna stop you from getting divorced. And by the way, your money may not last forever. True story, I know some people that went to school with my wife from a town in Southern California. The grandfather built the town. So they thought they were gonna inherit the town. And they lived like it. And they lived well when they were young. Well, guess who got left out of the will? I saw this guy, I saw him later, I went to a reunion with my wife. Guy's just out of rehab, stuffing groceries at a grocery store. And he's lucky to have that job. So that's him not preparing for, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with stuffing groceries, I'm saying that this guy had it all in front of him and he pissed it away because he thought it would just come to him. And that's the problem, like I said, I have with my country, is so many kids are just expecting things to just come to them. I mean, I came from privilege, but it didn't stop me from getting fired from Saturday Night Live. It didn't stop me when I was on Saturday Night Live, when I wrote my first sketch and I brought it to the producer, Steve Higgins. He looked at it and he goes, "What else you got?" Okay, I'm in my 20s. That's what happens in your 20s. No matter what job you all do, you have to have a boss who goes, "Go back and do it again." But kids today in my country, they flip out, they collapse, they've never been criticized, they turn to jelly. I've had friends of mine who are like, "I can't work with these kids. I can't give them criticism." They call their parents. So any amount of struggle is important. And I think it's an important thing growing up with perceived privilege, growing up with money and famous parents, but still having this debilitating learning disability, which made my life a living hell, made me realize that nobody is immune. Doesn't matter who you are, nobody's immune. So you better prepare for it. All right, now listen, I'll do one last question and then I'll tell you all. If you go over there, there's the Avatar booth. I will be signing, along with some lovely English people, and a gentleman named Jason Burrows, who's an American, and he looks like a white supremacist. He's not, just has a shaved head and this, and it's okay. But we will be signing Extinction Parade. I think we only have like 4 Harlem Hellfighters that are the pre-Harlem Hellfighters, the ones that haven't come out yet. They're the uncorrected proofs. So before I say goodnight, let me ask this young man this question. Yes?
How you doing, sir?
How you doing?
Are there any mistakes in your writing career that you would want to change?
Oh my God, are there any mistakes?
Yeah, like any specific ones.
Oh my God, the mistakes? The mistakes? Young man, before I have mentioned the term epic fail, who do you think invented it? Oh my God. Before I got my first job, before I sold my first screenplay, which never got made, by the way, I wrote 10 of them. All of them rejected, including one called the Harlem Hellfighters. I would go on meetings every day, pitching my ideas. Buy my stuff. No. I wrote things that nobody wanted to publish. To this day, he won't publish some of my stuff. And I make him money. This happy, smug, Peter Griffin-looking mother. Anyway, to this day, he's like, "Max, I love you and I love your work, but I can't publish. This one's not going to do anything. Believe me, this one's going to break me. I can't." So I still get rejected. But I wrote a book after World War Z, mind you, and nobody wanted to publish it. And they were so mad at me, my British publisher literally wrote me an email and said, "Max, why would you even write this?" This is after World War Z, where I made him a ton of money. It's all right. He had an accident and fell down the stairs later. That's not funny. So yes, the mistakes, the failures, the rejection. Oh my God, they keep coming. Look, every time I write something, somebody's gonna go on the internet and be like, "Dude, Max Brooks sucks, epic fail." Zombie Survival Guide: Recorded Attacks, it came out on Amazon. It's a graphic novel. somebody, probably from my country, got online and said, dude, I thought a graphic novel meant it was a novel with graphic violence. I didn't know it was a comic book. Max Brooks sucks. Somehow that was my fault that he didn't know that. Epic fail. So the truth is, I've made a galaxy of mistakes and I regret none of them. And I regret none of the mistakes I will continue to make. Thank you, everybody. That way to Avatar.